You are listening to the Novel Writing Podcast, episode 144. I'm your host, Colleen Mitchell. Grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. Today's episode is a this or that episode. I've had this idea for face-off episodes for a while, so this is our first sort of duke it out episode where there is no real winner other than what you choose is best for you. And for today, that's either writing in third person or writing in first person. Before I talk about the differences and benefits and downsides of each type of point of view, I'm going to explain them for those of you who are new to POVs or get mixed up between tense and POV. And there's no shame in that. It's a new language if you've never heard about this before. Point of view, as a broad definition, refers to how the story is told, whether using first-person pronouns of I, me, we, us, etc., or third-person pronouns like he, she, they, their, them, his, hers, etc. You are more likely going to choose between first person, which is I statements as if the reader is the character, or third person, which is he, she statements as if the reader is following the character along at a distance. The important thing to remember with points of view is that you are like 95% guaranteed to stay with either first person or third person throughout the entire novel. Rarely will you jump from first to third, except if you're doing it as a stylistic choice and it's not done in the same chapter. Tense, on the other hand, which can sometimes be confused with point of view, is whether your story is happening in the present or happened in the past. So let's see how these combinations play out in some examples. First person present tense example. I watch his face, searching for a sign that he believes me. First person past tense example. I watched his face, searching for a sign that he believed me. Third person present tense example. She watches his face, searching for a sign that he believes her. Third person past tense example. She watched his face, searching for a sign that he believed her. The differences are subtle, but make all the difference for how you tell your story. When you're writing, it's a good idea to establish beforehand which point of view and which tense you're writing, and keep it consistent throughout the whole book. It's a bit of a pickle to go back and fix from first to third or from past to present if you flip-flop between them. But since this episode is about point of views, or points of view, let's dive into them, shall we? First person puts the reader in the shoes of the character and has access to all the character's thoughts and knowledge. They're literally seeing through the eyes of that character. Everything the character knows, the reader should know. Third person puts the reader over the shoulder of the character and has some access to thoughts and feelings. The reader may not know everything the character knows in a third person perspective. First person prevents the reader from knowing what other characters are thinking because the point of view character does not have that information. Third person can potentially allow the reader to access other characters' thoughts if doing multiple points of view in a book. However, if your book is in single character third person limited POV, the reader won't know other characters' perspectives except from how they interact with the POV character. There's an older style of third person called third person omniscient, which is told through the lens of an omniscient narrator who knows everything about all of the characters, but tells the story from third person. This was more popular in the 20th century and earlier, and has a more antiquated style to it. A great example is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. That is a third-person omniscient novel. First person, for some people, including me, can be harder to read because if you don't immediately connect with the character, or can't imagine yourself as the character, you may find yourself disagreeing with what the character is experiencing or doing. While first person is becoming a much more popular point of view, especially in the fantasy and romance genres, I personally find it easier to read and engage with a story written in third person. But again, that's my personal preference. My books are all written in third person limited, but with multiple POV characters. For example, the first book in my series has 3 POV characters: Emma, Luke, and Bethany. They're all in third person past tense, and when I'm in each of their POVs, the reader is seeing the events of the story through their perspective, kind of over their shoulder. That means if Luke is sitting somewhere, I can't describe the color of another character's eyes unless Luke is seeing. Another example is when providing descriptions of characters in third person limited, and also in first person in some cases. It has to come from things that the reader can see as if from the character's vantage point, or over the character's shoulder. So the first chapter of my first book has Luke going to a bathroom to splash water on his face, and that's the point I can tell the readers what he looks like, because he's looking at himself in a mirror, and the reader is over his shoulder looking with him. Another third-person limited example is the Harry Potter series. All 7 books are from Harry's point of view in third person. We don't see anything from Ron or Hermione's perspectives because Harry is the POV character. We don't see what Hagrid or Dumbledore or Malfoy are doing during term except when Harry interacts. As for first person, like I said, many romance and fantasy novels are written in first person. While I don't personally recommend them, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros and the ACOTAR books by Sarah J. Maas, which are A Court of Thorns and Roses, those are both in first person. Another example is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer, and yet another is the Scholomance series by Naomi Novik. And of all of those examples, the only ones I actually enjoyed reading were the Scholomance books. But when it comes down to choosing which POV to use, it's a matter of preference. I prefer reading in third person, so I write in third person. If you prefer reading in first person, you might enjoy writing in first person. But that's not to say you can't experiment with the opposite, especially if the story you're trying to tell desires to be told in one or the other. I have a client who wanted to write in first person, but was somehow convinced that she actually had to write in third person, and then she ended up hating what she wrote and had to rewrite it back to first person in order to not hate it anymore. If you know what point of view your story needs to be told in, follow that instinct. And if you're wondering what happened to second person, this episode has elements of second person. Second person is when you, or the reader, are the subject or the main character. The best example of second person I can think of is actually a video game called The Stanley Parable, where you are playing Stanley and the narrator is speaking about you, to you, the player, with you language. But as for writing a novel, please don't write it in second person. It'll be really hard to find readers for it. That is it for today's episode. If this has been helpful for you, I would appreciate it if you left a rating or review on your platform of choice. While it does nothing for us, it does help other writers find this podcast. Thanks for joining me, and remember, the first draft is supposed to be garbage. Thanks for listening to the Novel Writing Podcast. If you're ready to stop struggling and start finishing your novel, check out the 60-Day Novel Writing Challenge. It's a step-by-step program designed for solo writers to complete their first draft with clarity and focus. Visit the link in the description to learn more.